noticed, but on close-ups and things like that, I had a tendency to blink too much or to move. Actually, I don't know if anybody's ever spotted this, but you can't look somebody in the eyes. You can only look in one eye, because otherwise your gaze shifts. So eventually one obviously tries to sort of look somewhere in the middle. But I had this habit of switching my eyes back and forth a great deal, and Bob mentioned it to me, and it was tremendously helpful in so many tiny, tiny details like that that made me, I think, look better, and certainly I remember them all my life. But I did delight in teasing him a little and trying to make him crack up. I just wish we'd done a whole lot more films together. We did eventually go on to make Star together, which was tremendous fun also. But I'd like to have done about 6 more after that with Bob.
A couple more instances for Salzburg to run by your memory. One was a day that you hired a bus for a bunch of you to go to, I think it was Munich, to a ballet.
The ballet, yeah, to see my chum. I wonder what they were, I think they were doing something like Sleeping Beauty or something. Towards the end of the stay in Salzburg, a very close friend of mine, actually my daughter's godmother, a wonderful ballerina called Svetlana Beryozova, was appearing with the Royal Ballet in Munich. And Munich is so close to Salzburg, and I was determined somehow that I was going to get to go and see her perform. And so it occurred to me it would be fun for all of us to go and see her. And so I hired a coach, and we set off one day and had a kind of picnic on the coach. And by that time, by the end of Salzburg, we were such a close-knit company. And honestly, I guess about 20, 30 of us went. It was a marvelous, marvelous day. It took a while to get there, and it took a while to get back, and there were a lot of silly jokes on the bus and a lot of fun. And of course the wonderful ballet and the beautiful opera house in Munich. It was quite a nice day.
I found the little note that you sent to all the people to come.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah.
What did it say?
It said something like, keep it clean, Sally's bringing his tape recorder, or something like that.
Did I say?
And it also said, no minors allowed. I was wondering, this off the record, I was wondering if that little incident might have been the basis for getting the scene in Star, where Gertie hires the bus and they all go off to Maine.
That's a very good point. I don't think it did. She probably did that anyway. And probably 100 million other people have had the same idea. I did a similar thing just recently. For what it's worth, I did a similar thing in putting it together when I was on Broadway earlier this year. And my daughter has started a theatre in Sag Harbor on the northern end of Long Island. And I arranged for the whole company to go out and have a day by the sea and to see the theatre. And we had a wonderful lunch out there. And I know that it was a conscious or unconscious, probably more conscious, effort to recreate the fun we had on that lovely day when we went to Munich.
And one more incident from Salzburg. You're shooting I Have Confidence on the Residenzplatz Square, and Baroness
yeah.
shows up. And then you can also lead into maybe later on that you had her on your show.
Yeah, okay. A lot of people have asked me if I ever met the real Maria von Trapp, the Baroness, and I did. She came to Salzburg while we were filming there, and I was kind of nervous because I'm sure she must have been very anxious about who this lady was that was portraying her and so on. I like to think that we took to each other instantly. She actually is in one of the shots in the film. I believe she walks across in the background in one of the scenes when I sing and I Have Confidence. We're in this huge, big square, and I believe as an extra, she and a group of people walk behind me as I'm singing. But we became very friendly for such a short meeting, and I eventually asked her if she would care. Yeah.
Is that upstairs?
It's either upstairs or downstairs or in my lady's chamber, one of the two. We became quite friendly, and I eventually did a television series, and I asked her to come and be interviewed on the series, on one of the shows. And she very sweetly came, and we renewed our acquaintance, had a good time.
Are we over a bowling alley or something?
No, we're over the garage, and I don't know what's upstairs.
We're only at 3.2. Let's keep going.
Yes.
Okay. Let's skip ahead now to the completion of the film, and you're looking at it completed for the first time. What's the reaction?
Do you know, I don't remember. I don't remember. I think that the film was so huge and such an enormous effort in terms of the whole physical, the feeling of exhaustion that one had when one had finished it, that I don't remember too much about seeing the finished product. I do remember one rather wonderful day, though. The film was out, but it had not been released, and I had just met and was dating a terribly attractive, handsome fellow called Blake Edwards. And he had two young children of 6 and 8. Maybe even, no, about 6 and 8. And I asked Bob if it was possible to see a screening of the film. And he very sweetly arranged for a screening just for me and for Blake and his two children in the big screening room at 20th Century Fox. And I remember that I thought that the kids could get bored or hungry or something like that, so I bought a big picnic basket in, and it was quite amazing, just the four of us in this very, very large theater. They've never forgotten it. It was, in fact, one of the first meetings I ever had with the children, so, you know, I'm not a fool. I'm going to, you know, woo them somehow, and I did the best I could.
That's great. Where are you pulling all these stories that we haven't heard before? That's great.
That's a nice story, yeah.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, do you remember premieres in New York and in Hollywood? I know in Hollywood you went with Solly Chaplin.
Yeah, no, the premiere in New York, I remember for one thing only. I remember crowds, and I remember that, you know, it was very exciting, and I think I had a pretty dress on, and all of that was great fun. There's something kind of wonderful at having accomplished a really big film like that, and knowing that it's in the can, so to speak, and we got to the theater, and after it was over, we were all mingling in the lobby, and a lady came up to me, and I suddenly realized it was the actress Bette Davis, and she singled me out, and she came up to me, and she said something like, "Young lady, you are going to be a very big star." And I thought it was a very generous thing for her to say, and she obviously had enjoyed the movie enormously. And I never met her again. I just thought it was a very nice thing for somebody to say, considering she was such a huge star at the time.
I'd like to talk about a very hectic and demanding month. This would be, I guess, or a couple months, maybe March, April of '65. The picture opens. You receive your Oscar for Mary Poppins. You get your footprints in the forecourt of the Chinese Theater. How does one deal with all that amount of attention all at once like that?
I mentioned earlier how I had all the fun of making 3 films and not one of them ever being released. I mean, obviously they were, but while I was making the films, they hadn't been released yet. That sort of quiet tranquility very quickly disappeared once Poppins had opened and once The Sound of Music came out, because then it was probably one of the busiest times in my career. And I do remember it as being a sort of an assault on one's senses. There were an enormous amount of press interviews and lovely honors and accolades, like having my footprints and handprints at Grauman's Chinese, and many, many things came along. But it did kind of knock me sideways for a while. It was so much, so fast, and I was... who is ever prepared for something like that? I certainly wasn't.
The other thing that nobody was prepared for was the fact that The Sound of Music was not only successful, but a huge phenomenon. And
Yeah.
This manifested itself to you in interesting ways or strange